The strange thing was this. Even before the world started pairing them romantically, before the shipping culture erupted, before the award show glances and the behind-the-scenes whispers, there was already something there. Something the cameras didn't create. Something that didn't begin with a drama script or a fan theory. Something older, quiet, hidden, and incredibly dangerous to uncover. Because the truth about YoonA and Lee Jun-ho didn't start in 2023, or 2024, or even 2025. It began long before that. Somewhere in the blurred spaces of early career struggles, late-night rehearsals, and lives lived under blinding lights. Somewhere far from the stage, far from the lenses, far from the world watching their every move. And like all dangerous stories, the first chapter always hides in plain sight. It happened on a rainy night. Years before dramas, years before on-screen chemistry became a weapon, years before anyone even dared to dream of pairing them together. They were rookies then. Hungry, exhausted, unaware that the person standing just a few meters away would eventually become the most complicated presence in their lives. The rain had been merciless that night, hammering the pavement behind the broadcast station as young trainees rushed between schedules. YoonA, umbrella snapped inside out, hair drenched, sprinted into the shelter of a bus stop. Jun-ho, clutching a backpack heavier than his hopes at the time, arrived moments later, shaking off the same storm like he had gotten used to surviving them. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. There was an instant recognition. Not romantic, not dramatic, but strangely grounding. As if sharing the same storm made them part of the same silent survival story. He nodded. She nodded back. And just like that, the first thread between them formed, so thin it could have snapped with a whisper. But it didn't. Years passed. Careers launched. Paths split. Yet the thread held. Every time they crossed, the familiarity was there. Quiet, easy, enforced. A kind of comfort that didn't demand attention but demanded honesty. They didn't become best friends. They didn't become inseparable. They became something more complicated. Two people who didn't need closeness to understand connection. Their agencies never highlighted it. Their fans never noticed it. Their co-stars barely sensed it. Yet everyone who worked near them during variety shows, backstage events, or award ceremonies claimed the same thing. There was always a certain warmth, a certain knowing, a certain invisible conversation happening behind their eyes. And then King the Land happened. The pairing that no one expected became the pairing the world couldn't forget. Their chemistry didn't look practiced. Their laughter didn't look scripted. Their gazes didn't look like acting. It was too smooth, too natural, too synced. Like they weren't learning each other. They were remembering each other. People called it acting. But people who witnessed them on set whispered something else. During breaks, YoonA would tease him with a softness no one had seen her use before. He would look at her with a kind of ease most actors only reach after months of trust building. They weren't flirting, not exactly. It was something far more dangerous. Something effortless. Something that didn't feel new. One night during filming, the crew turned off the main lights to reset equipment. The entire set washed in a dim amber glow. YoonA stood near the monitor, sipping warm tea to fight the cold. Jun-ho walked toward her, but halfway there he stopped. Not abruptly, not noticeably to others, but with a hesitation that carried history. She looked up. He looked back. And for a moment too long to be professional, too intimate to be accidental, too familiar to be fictional, they simply existed in each other's presence. That moment never aired. That moment wasn't part of the script. But the cameras rolling in the drama were merely shadows compared to the camera running between them. When the drama aired and exploded worldwide, rumors began. Dating theories. They're too natural. They must be real. Did you see that smile? That wasn't acting. But the world didn't know the truth. The chemistry you saw wasn't the beginning of their connection. It was the result of it. Then came 2024. The wedding sighting. The matching phone cases. The backstage clip of them laughing like old friends reunited. The rumor storms that agencies tried, too calmly, to quiet. And yet nothing truly resurfaced until the infamous 2025 award night, when a single glance from Jun-ho turned the internet into a battlefield. That look wasn't born from romance. It wasn't born from scandal. It was born from knowing someone so well that your eyes find them even when your mind hasn't caught up. The truth was simple. You don't look at someone like that unless they've been in your story for a long, long time. Later that night, backstage, a staff member overheard a small exchange, one that wasn't flirty, wasn't dramatic, but was unmistakably intimate. YoonA, adjusting her dress in front of a mirror, sighed softly. Jun-ho, passing by, paused just a second too long and said quietly, "It's been a while." It wasn't a pickup line. It wasn't nostalgia. It was acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of the invisible thread still pulling them together after all these years. She turned, offered a small smile, the kind that only appears when the past touches the present, and replied, "Longer than it feels." And there it was. 4 words that explained everything. Longer than it feels. Their bond wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't publicized. It was lived in silence. Built quietly. Survived storms. Held together across years without needing confirmation or labels. That night, when they walked past each other in the corridor, shoulders inches apart, hearts pretending indifference, their steps matched rhythm without trying. Like they had been walking parallel paths for years without ever crossing lanes. Even the fans noticed. "He doesn't look at anyone like that. She smiles differently when he's around. This isn't chemistry. This is history." Because here is the truth the world has been too focused on romance to understand. Some relationships are more powerful before they turn romantic. Some bonds are stronger when undefined. Some connections don't need labels. They simply exist, pulsating beneath the surface. Some friendships carry a spark that no rumor, no denial, no distance can fully extinguish. And with YoonA and Lee Jun-ho, that spark has been glowing for more than 15 years. Maybe it's friendship. Maybe it's something more. Maybe it's something neither of them have dared to define. But one thing is undeniable. Their connection didn't start with the camera. And it certainly didn't end with it. The world may keep guessing, analyzing, zooming, theorizing. But the truth sits quietly between them. Steady, persistent, unbroken. A bond too old to be fake. A chemistry too real to be scripted. A story too powerful to be understood by outsiders. 15 years. 2 careers. Several storms. One undeniable thread. And no matter how loud the rumors get, their friendship, whatever its true shape may be, remains the part of the story no one can rewrite, deny, or replace. The strange thing about threads woven quietly over time is that they tighten when you least expect it. After that short, electrifying exchange backstage, "It's been a while" / longer than it feels, something between them shifted again. Not dramatically, not publicly, but subtly, like the world tilted a degree and forced their orbits closer without asking for permission. The after-party was loud, glossy, glittering with industry politics and polite smiles. But the noise felt thinner that night, as if the air itself was trying to push them toward the same corner of the room. YoonA slipped away from the crowd first, escaping toward the balcony for quiet air. Jun-ho followed a few minutes later, not because he planned to, but because his steps drifted in that direction before he fully realized it. She stood there, city lights washing over her like a soft spotlight, hair catching the wind in a way that made her look like she was part of the skyline. He paused in the doorway, watching her the way someone watches a memory come to life. "You always disappear from parties," he said finally. "You always find me when I do," she replied, not turning yet. The familiarity in her voice hit him like a chord he hadn't heard in years but still knew how to play. When she finally faced him, the silence between them wasn't awkward. It was thick with history. Years of passing glances. Years of parallel schedules. Years of unspoken comfort. Years of pretending nothing was shifting even when something very clearly was. He stepped closer, not enough to be obvious, but enough that their shadows merged under the balcony light. She didn't step back. "You know they're going to talk," she murmured. They always do. And they'll talk more if they see us here. He shrugged lightly. Let them talk. Those 3 words weren't bold. They weren't rebellious. But they carried something heavy, something he had never said aloud before. For a moment, it stripped the distance between them. For a moment it made them real. YoonA looked at him, truly looked, and a small, breath-catching smile slipped out before she could stop it. You've changed. No, he said softly. I've just stopped pretending. There was again history. A history that never became a scandal, a headline, or even a rumor because they had protected it too well. A history that lived in the moments no one caught, the glances no one recorded, the storms they silently weathered side by side. They stood there for long seconds, listening to the dull echo of music from inside. The wind brushed her hair across her cheek, and without thinking, without even hesitating, Jun-ho reached out and gently tucked it behind her ear. She froze. Not because she was startled, but because the gesture was too familiar. Too natural. Too old to be new. You've always done that, she whispered. You've always needed it, he replied. And something in her chest tightened at the quiet truth of it. Before she could respond, the balcony door slid open behind them. A staff member popped his head out, reminding them the group photo was about to start. They stepped apart instinctively, masks sliding back into place, expressions smoothing into safety. But their eyes, those always betrayed them. During the photo session they stood 2 people apart. Polite. Professional. But the photographer noticed something strange. Whenever he told the group to relax or shift position, both of them turned slightly toward each other. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to betray instinct. After the event wrapped, and the night inevitably began to dissolve, they ended up waiting for their cars at the same time. A coincidence to the world. Not a coincidence to their thread. The night air had grown colder. She rubbed her hands together lightly. He noticed immediately, because he always noticed her discomfort before she showed it. Without saying a word, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She blinked up at him, startled not by the gesture but by the familiarity of it. Jun-ho. Your fans are going to kill us if someone sees this. They'll survive, he said with a faint smile. You're reckless tonight. No, he answered, voice low. Just honest. Her breath caught again, because honesty had always been the one line they never crossed. Honesty meant acknowledgement. Honesty meant danger. Honesty meant the thread was no longer invisible. Her car arrived first. The driver opened the door. Paparazzi lingered at the far end of the street, too far to capture them clearly but close enough to make her anxious. She slipped out of his jacket quickly. Take it. Keep it for tonight, he said, pushing it gently back into her hands. It looks better on you. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't teasing. It was something deeper, older, quieter, like the kind of affection built over years of small moments rather than grand declarations. She hesitated, then held the jacket to her chest like it held something fragile. Will it always be like this? She asked softly. This, in between. He stepped closer, close enough that their breaths mixed in the cold air, close enough that the street noise vanished, close enough that the world seemed to shrink around them. Only if we let it, he whispered. Her pulse stopped, or sped up, or both. Before he could say more, a flash went off at the end of the street. Not close enough to catch details, but close enough to remind them that the world was always watching. YoonA took a breath, nodded, and slipped into her car. But before she closed the door, she looked at him one last time. Not with fear. Not with hesitation. With clarity. The kind of clarity born from 15 years of recognizing someone who had always been standing just a few storms away. As her car pulled off, Jun-ho watched her disappear into the night. Not dramatically, not sadly, but with an expression that finally admitted something he had kept buried for far too long. This wasn't a spark. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a connection that started before the cameras, survived through silence, resurfaced accidentally, and was now, finally, too strong to ignore. And for the first time since that rainy trainee night years ago, the thread between them wasn't just holding. It was pulling.